It's been a tumultuous week for TikTok, shutting down its app in the States for under 24 hours, only to switch it back on with Trump's inauguration. I think it now works if you've got it, but you can't, in America, download it from Apple or from Google. But the story's far from over, as US interests eye up a purchase if they get Trump's blessing. Jake, Elon Musk's inevitably in the running for this.
Absolutely zero monopoly concerns there, is there?
But there's also another person who put their hand up, Mr. Beast. He's keen to join the fray as well. He's joined one of the bidders.
Should we all club together? Is there a chance? I don't know.
It'd be a fun platform to own. I'm
yes,
not sure
on my vast deadline salary, I'm sure I can afford TikTok. I mean, Jimmy Donaldson, I mean, it looked like a bit of a stunt initially, but...
He's some good stunt casting to add to a thing.
And he genuinely follows through on his stunts. I mean, he's a man who delivers and delivers on big scale. So it feels like there's some truth in it. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this all sort of quietly goes away and Donald Trump finds a way to make sure TikTok is just, it doesn't even need to be purchased by an American buyer and survives as it is.
There's an interesting battle between the law that was passed before he took over by a lot of Republicans as well.
Oh, it's completely bilateral, isn't it?
And what Trump wants to do. There has to be in place a deal to allow sort of TikTok back on the air. And it's a big gamble so Oracle and Acme, one of the CDN providers, have sort of allowed it to be turned back on. They could be fined £5,000 a user, which could add up to billions. So there's a lot of gambles everyone's taking over what happens with TikTok.
Yeah, it's all a bit murky though, isn't it? Because Donald Trump even suggested that Larry Ellison, who owns and founded Oracle, could be a buyer. It's all a bit murky. I think there's no doubt that Donald Trump holds a lot of cards here, and he will be seen as a sort of savior by TikTok users, which is no bad place for a incoming US president. And I sort of wonder whether, the fact that the TikTok CEO was at the inauguration, Shou Chew, suggests that, I'm sure there's all sorts of conversations going on behind the scenes. Maybe even Trump is trying to bring TikTok to heel like he has done with American tech giants. Maybe he's even telling them to sort of juice the Trump algorithm, turn up the Trump dial, and they'll be just fine in America. I don't know. This is all speculation on my part. But
I mean, Trump talked about giving a permit, which I thought was a very kind of Trumpian way of dealing with it. Hey, they can just buy a permit from us, me, whatever, to allow the app back. I mean, they very much leaned into. There was a little notification saying that due to a conversation with President Trump, TikTok's back open. I mean, they're kissing ass like the rest of the tech.
Well, yeah, and I think Trump had suggested that a buyer could buy 50% and the other 50% would be owned by the government. And you get into this world of going, so we're kind of criticising the fact that we think China owns or kind of what they're called,
ByteDance.
Yeah. But then we're also saying let's get other governments involved in policing potential free speech if it exists. So I think it should be waved through if we all agree that we have to just call him Mr. Beast. So that at the next inauguration we have it will be like a WWE assembling of characters from all these billionaires that just own these platforms and have far more influence than anyone ever has.
Well, there were no red-hatted Trump supporters, and the tech bros were in front of the cabinet when they were sitting there for the inauguration. I mean, if there's any description of what the Trump administration's like, surely that's got to be it.
Yeah, quite. And look, the world has always had very, very wealthy individuals who basically dictate how things work. I guess the difference being there is a lack of regulation in terms of the rise of these companies. Often they have a kind of global power that even Rupert Murdoch would envy. And we have no understanding of how data and all the information they gather, the values being put $1 trillion valuation on TikTok, suggests, and that isn't just because there's lots of people posting very funny videos on that. That's because data is incredibly useful, and again, not just to get you to go to your local supermarket and buy something, because it helps steer the geopolitics of how the world works. So it is scary. It's hard to be too scared by someone called Mr. Beast, but I mean, we should all probably be very scared.
I mean, is TikTok, when you think about your clients, is it just become the essential platform? Do you have to basically play?
No, you don't. No, not at all. I don't think you do. I think I think for production companies, and I think for, we've got a team that do live tours, it's incredibly useful. And I think where it proved incredibly valuable to our clients was particularly to comedians during lockdowns and things like that, because they found that was where they could, lots of the comedy talent that we see doing really exciting things have developed that voice of theirs on these platforms. But you can still, I mean, that is the reality. Is also the one safety valve, I guess, that we all have, is we could just stop using these platforms. If we all stopped using X, it does diminish the value, and likewise with TikTok, but it does feel like that horse has bolted quite far ahead.
I think it's interesting on the X side. I've always been a sort of Twitter user. There are significantly less tweets from the people that I follow. Like, it's sort of becoming a ghost town. And Elon Musk's heart/Nazi salute this week, I don't think particularly encourages.
Do we need
people,
the the slash? I mean, it's I think it's really interesting, and it's something even just with mates you discuss. Come off X, because otherwise you just you're validating it or whatever. But then I'm always of the belief that you can persuade people, or you can remain a voice of, but not that God says the guy with no influence on there whatsoever. But I mean, in the sense that don't let things become echo chambers. But then you're working against an algorithm that looks pretty well designed to stoke anger or frustration.
Social media is driven by emotion. We had a TikTok viral hit from the Media Club last week. So our chat about Scotland and the traitors did like 70,000 views on TikTok.
Oh my
and it
God,
did like 150,000 views on.
Oh my God, I'm really.
Is this the obscure nations and regions story about the traitors?
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm suddenly nervous, by the way. So watch what we say.
But what's interesting is the reason that I think it got a lot of uptake is it drove passion. People in Scotland, even who very much were not in the media, regarded that. You read the comments, regarded it as that's typical for what happens here in Scotland. Now, a lot of people don't necessarily understand the broader story, and you can't always do that in a minute long clip. But you can only see how these things get skewed.